Hey Chris, it's another week of crazy cyber stuff.
It's another week is right.
Anyway, um, the I don't know what's going on, but it looks like you're froze.
That's what it looks like. Hold on.
You're still froze.
I'll fix my camera. We can continue. And
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to talk this week about the FTC safeguards rule. Some new stuff that came out in the past couple months. It's going to an effect real soon, and I wanted to go through and walk through some of the things that businesses need to know because a lot of people don't even know the rule exists, I think.
yeah, this is a big deal. Um, we're specifically seeing it for tax preparers because it was a bigger deadline for them, but like it affects a lot of different companies.
And you're being bashful, huh?
Me?
Got no video.
We'll have video here just a second.
Cool. Yeah, the ruling does affect financial services institutions, tax preparers, bookkeepers, whole
I'm
bunch of
back.
people. You're back.
Sorry.
There we go.
Yep. Technology, right?
It's
All right.
just another day.
Yep. Auto dealership's a big one too. That's a huge one that's really kind of looking at this. Basically, if you're not bound by some other regulation and you do financial services and you deal with personally identifiable information, so customers' information, you're bound by this rule. There's gonna be a lot of probably gray area where people are going to try to determine if they're bound by it. But the thing is, it's not what you think it is, it's what your actual activities of your business are. So you're going to want to consult with probably an attorney, probably somebody that's an expert in Graham Leach Biley Act, so GLBA. But just understand that there's fines up to what is it, like $43,000? A little bit
Yeah, it
higher
was
than that.
$43,000 for a violation. But so here's the thing: is this another HIPAA where certain people think it's important and will do it, or is there going to actually be teeth in this one that is going to be enforceable and reporting on it? Because that's the big thing with a lot of these compliance things is, they're out there, but people don't implement it or even care because no one's going to find them until there's a problem.
Well, for tax pros, it matters because the IRS, you have to have all this done before you even can get approved for the IRS. I think for taxes to do the 2022 taxes in 2023.
Okay.
So they're they're actually they're following this, so you don't have a choice. For other ones, oh maybe. If I was a dealer, or if I was dealing with highly sensitive financial information, I don't think I'd roll the dice because the FTC will fine people. I mean, they probably, I don't know, if you look at their fining, it seems like they have a lot more teeth with their fining than HIPAA does. Now HIPAA violations can be more, but like you said, yeah, the policing of it is a little different, and maybe people won't care. But if
They might not care, but all we can do is educate to what's going on, and that's what we're doing.
yeah,
So, some of the highlights of that program of that ruling really is stuff that we've been talking about all along of putting a real security program in place, and now it's kind of like solidifying what we've been talking about. Everything starts with that risk assessment.
yep. Well, it starts with you have to designate an individual inside your company, and then you have to do the risk assessment. So that's important. You don't need a high level security person. You need somebody that's appropriate for your business. So small business, it'll probably be, I don't know, probably what do you think, the owner, maybe office manager, depends on the size of the business. And as you go up, it'll probably be um, financially probably CFO, I would think, something like
So,
that.
so they have to designate a security officer. The security that
Basically,
that
a compliance officer, maybe. So
a compliance or security
yeah,
officer, but it's not so much the person has to do it. They just have to oversee and be responsible for it.
yeah, they have to implement it and supervise it, but they don't have to actually do the implementation. They have to kind of oversee it. You can use a service provider, so you can use an outsourced or an affiliate of some sort, but you're ultimately, just remember, you as the company or your company is ultimately responsible. So even if you use a service provider, your company is responsible to make sure this gets done, not the service provider. That's a pretty big distinction. So you can't just pass this off to a service provider and wipe your hands clean of it. It's your responsibility still as a company to make sure it gets done.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there. I don't think that we can cover it all. Cover it all in one short 12-minute video today. But
Yeah, there's 9 elements to it of creating a security program. Yeah, I think the highlights are probably the big one. Like after you designate, conduct a risk assessment because, like what Bob said, we have to understand, or you have to understand, what risks do you have in your business, what threats do you have in your business, and what exactly are you trying to protect. And that's a big deal. So that's where the risk assessment would come in. And then just high level, then you're putting safeguards in place to protect that information. So tax preparers are a good example. You have social security numbers for people, bank accounts, all their information, all the PII. You know, you can face fines outside the FTC for this. You can face fines from the state governments. California and New York probably the most strict, but other states are putting privacy laws in that you can be affected by. So there's a chance that if you really screw this up, you could be fined by your state and the FTC.
oh, great, we start stacking fines.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're not going to care about whether you've already been fined for it. Once you get that implemented, you move on, and this is a big one. You have to regularly monitor and test the effectiveness of all those controls, all those safeguards you put in place. Here's the challenge with that. This is the real expensive part. This is probably the most expensive part of this entire program, because their definition of continuous monitoring in one of their workshops said that it could cost a small to medium sized business up to $600,000 a year. If they did
600.
continuous monitoring, $600K. Now, if you can't do continuous monitoring, you can elect to do an annual pen test and 2 vulnerability assessments where you're looking for known vulnerabilities in your environment. So basically what they're going to do there is they're going to scan your computers, your systems for just known vulnerabilities so that a hacker can't take advantage of that. But even then, even for a small business, you're looking at a pen test is going to run you a penetration test where somebody's actually testing your security, $10,000 to $20,000 on the low end. And then the vulnerability assessment probably going to cost you.
So that $20,000 assessment, what size company was that?
That's going to be a small company. That's pretty much
10 people?
Probably
20 people? Yeah, okay.
Maybe 20 people. It really depends on who you go with. Most pen tests are going to cost at least 10, even for the smallest companies. And it climbs pretty quickly. If you get to a medium-sized company, there's a good chance a pen test could cost $100,000. You got to do that annually. Vulnerability assessments, depending on how many elements you have in your business, between computers and users, those will probably run $4,000 to $9,000 each. So you can see where this adds up. Now that's obviously less than 600,000, but it's if you don't have it budgeted, it's gonna be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't put a limit. There's no exemption for being small.
If you've got data, it matters.
Right. They don't make an exemption for being small. Their exemption is, hey, if you can't pay for continuous monitoring, well, guess what? You can do a pen test and 2 vulnerability assessments.
Right. So that the monitoring is one of the aspects of what they require. I think there's like nine or 10 things.
There's 9 things. After you monitor, you got to train your staff. So you got to do security training for your staff. You're responsible to monitor all your service providers. So anybody that you do work with that could touch that data, that's going to be software as a service applications. So for tax pros, if you're using like some hosted tax program or you're hosting it yourself, that vendor, you're going to have to make sure that they're doing security practices as well and understand how they're protecting that data. And you have to document that. A security program also always has to be up to date. So this is not a static thing. This is not something you just do once and you're done.
Yep.
You're going to have to update it probably at least annually. Anytime your business changes, let's say you have a key change in personnel or there's like an emerging threat, you're going to have to modify it. So this is something that's going to have to be done all the time. It's not going to be something that's just, hey, I did it once and I'm done.
Well, I think a lot of the financial services people, the tax preparers and stuff understand that applications like QuickBooks and TurboTax, they all get updates constantly because everything's changing. And the security aspect is the same. This is not going to be buying an off-the-shelf product to make it work. This is real people doing real work to monitor what's going on.
Yeah, and it's going to be a big burden, especially for the smaller you are, the bigger the burden it's going to be. The next big key thing here is you have to have an incident response plan. It has to be written out. All of this has to be written. This is not just like some pie in the sky, like, hey, I thought about this, it's done. Nope, this all has to be written out and documented.
Yep.
Incident response plan is, it has to describe the goals, all the processes you have internally, the roles and responsibilities during an incident, and all the processes and procedures that go along with that, and then post-mortem of it. And then finally, once you're done through all that, the qualified individual has to report to the board of directors or the equivalent in your company. So if you don't have a board, like the owner of the company, it could be, maybe it's a small group, it's not necessarily a board, but kind of is a board. They have to report annually on all of this. And here's my problem with when you outsource it, when you try to outsource it to a service provider, and I think this is what they caught with the first part of it. You can't outsource documenting internal changes all the time. And by what I mean by that is, if an employee does something internally that never gets reported to the provider, let's say they access something they shouldn't have and they violated a policy, the provider may or may not know that, depending on what level of access they have. It's your responsibility to report that, to keep track of that. So any kind of decisions you make in the business, so like if you make a risk management decision or a control decision, that has to be reported as part of this. That's really an internal process.
Right.
It's not necessarily an external process. So for me, I think the best way to run this program would be to have a person in your company that is responsible for the program. You can outsource parts of it. You can outsource a lot of it, but that person is the person who has to collect all that information and then report internally. Now they may bring people in from the service provider, from whoever you're using, but they're still required to be the lead on reporting that.
Yeah, so many of these programs that are coming out, they all go back to the NIST standards of what needs to be done. With some exceptions and things, but the compliance officer you're talking about really goes down like on the HIPAA space. It's really the HIPAA compliance officer. It's somebody in the organization who is ultimately responsible for your security implementations. So identify who the security person is. Yes, it could be an outsourced person, but that person has to really be part of the team.
Yeah, they really have to be. They have to have intimate knowledge and have some level of access inside your company.
And
probably have some level of control.
But that type of access, you're not going to get that out of a service provider for cheaply, because it requires a lot of time and effort. So it's really.
You're probably talking thousands of dollars per month to bring a third party person in to run this program.
Yeah. It's another position.
Right. Exactly. You're pretty much hiring a part-time person but you're going to have to give that person some level of authority. So you're now giving authority in your business to a part-time person. So some people that's cool with. It depends on the size of the organization. It might make sense. For other companies, it probably doesn't make sense.
Anyway, a lot of information here. I think next week we will go through and break down an incident response plan.
Yeah.
For what really needs to be in a plan, and I think that's going to be it for this week. And I don't know. I'm traveling next week. I'm not even sure where I am anyway. Actually,
we'll be together next week.
That's right. We'll be in Dallas next week, so we'll get something.
We'll shoot together next week. That'd be awesome.
Cool.
Cybersecurity Awareness Month starting Saturday.
Yep.
First Saturday. So get ready for that. We're both gonna drop content all month, both our companies, and we like us specifically. We have a surprise that's coming in October. So. Yeah. A little bit of a change, a little bit of surprise. We'll leave you with that. So.
Your dog's going to get a playmate?
No, my dog's not getting a playmate. My dog is calm right now, so we'll see how that goes. No, no, it's
Sadie's getting a playmate at the end of the month.
oh, that's right. You get the family moving in.
Sean's coming with a cat. This is going to be interesting.
Oh, with a cat?
Beagle and a cat.
Has she ever been around cats? Stay
Nope.
tuned for this one, folks. This is going to be good.
That's why we now have a door separate. There are some extra doors in place now. Okay, everyone. See you
right.
next week.
We'll see you next week.
Chris, I'll see you in Dallas, and have a
Sounds
good
good.
week, guys.
All right.